All right, thanks everyone. So we're delighted to have Vivek here from Etherealize for our last talk. So unless you've been living under a rock, you've seen the big splash that Etherealize did when they announced their formation recently. So this is a very topical conversation because it's pretty recent. I think a lot of this happened in January. So maybe to kick things off for those who are not aware, Vivek, would you mind giving a bit your background and the sort of founding story of Etherealize?
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see everyone. The backdrop actually, although Etherealize, we launched officially in January, this has been a long time coming. Institutional adoption for Ethereum has always been the end game I've seen for Ethereum. Backing up, I come from Wall Street, so New York's my home. I spent 10 years here. I was at 4 different banks. I was at Morgan Stanley, UBS, Deutsche Bank, Nomura, and I was a trader. I traded credit products from high yield bonds to distressed bonds to loans to credit default swaps. So that's my DNA. I come from the TradFi world. When I finally left TradFi after 10 years, I found the Ethereum ecosystem, got connected to the EF, and learned very quickly all about DeFi and how Ethereum actually works and what it is. And to me, product market fit for Ethereum was to move the Wall Street capital markets on to settle on Ethereum. That to me is the clearest use case for Ethereum. That to me became my mission. For the last 4 to 5 years, I've been working on institutional adoption, going to banks, going to asset managers, basically going to everyone I used to work with on Wall Street, which is a whole wide range of buy side, sell side, and saying we should use Ethereum as a settlement layer, and ETH is an institutional grade asset that belongs in a portfolio along with Bitcoin. At 4 years of that, it was not that fruitful. There were a lot of headwinds against the Ethereum ecosystem. Finally, last year, all of it changed when institutions started tokenizing money market funds, like BlackRock started it off on Ethereum. The ETH ETFs were approved. ETH was declared basically a commodity by de facto. And then the institutional interest went from, we don't want to talk about Ethereum, to what can we do with Ethereum? And that was sort of the catalyst for us to say, you know what, let's actually mobilize an effort and be front-facing and be institutional and go sell Ethereum and go teach the world what we can do with it. So what is Etherealize? Etherealize is meant to connect institutions and the broader world to the Ethereum ecosystem. Well, I view Ethereum as the financial internet. The internet is a neutral global layer, and it doesn't have business development, it doesn't have product development. There's no one out there championing Ethereum, even because it's the most neutral, decentralized layer. So we stepped up, and we very thankfully are in partnership with a lot of people in the Ethereum ecosystem. We have a very close relationship with the EF, very close relationship with the EEA. We're here to complement all efforts and show the world that Ethereum is open for business, and it is the best, most neutral, most open layer for tokenized assets.
That's awesome. I was wondering if you could go a bit into what you're hearing from these institutions. So you said there was a kind of sea change, I presume around last year, and they started with these tokenization efforts. Now there's also layer 2 creating new layer 2 efforts. What are some of the use cases or excitement you're hearing from institutions in terms of the next big use cases we're going to see from them on Ethereum?
I think the ironic part is institutions have known about blockchains since Ethereum's inception in 2014. The narrative always was, very ironically, blockchain, not Bitcoin, and everyone loved the underlying blockchain technology for very, very simple reasons. I don't think we have to overcomplicate blockchain's use case. In the end, all assets are going to be digital, just like the internet has made all information digital. Blockchains make assets digital. And in the end, all commerce can happen digitally on a blockchain. So if that's the case, all we needed was a regulatory opening where institutions could actually credibly adopt public blockchains. And then we needed the willingness and the precedent and the clarity for that to start happening. All of that changed last year, and especially after the election. So now blockchains are open for business. I think that it'd be a misnomer to think that institutions didn't know about blockchains before. They all ran internal blockchains. They all ran private blockchains. The real magic happens when you plug into the public blockchain moment and everyone gets access in the future. And that moment's right now. So I think the wave of innovation is happening from a bunch of different new asset classes getting tokenized, but also institutions being able to build their own layer 2 ecosystems to have their own customer base, to have their own customized app, to have their own privacy, to have their own KYC requirements. That's the beautiful part about Ethereum's architecture, is it allows for customized blockchains that all plug into the network. And that's what Ethereum is designed for.
Yeah, this ties into something I wanted to ask you about, which is, I agree it's a strength, but you can also argue it's a weakness compared to some of the, let's say like Solana, right? Like a single layer 1 high performance. And I think it's fair to say like the price performance of ETH and some of the narratives around like increasing layer 2s that fragment liquidity and the user adoption, user experience issues of bridging and stuff are a concern for many. Like, how do you hear that as well, like from institutionals around, are they considering other layer 1 blockchains to build on, or is it really kind of Ethereum focused, or is there kind of a selection bias and you end up talking to the ones that are interested in Ethereum anyway?
No, I think it's important to be technology neutral and look at everything. There's a Cambrian explosion of blockchains out there, and there's a lot of different L1s. I think that if you go into a room and say, what is the most secure, the most decentralized place to put the highest value assets, that's had zero downtime, that is completely global, Ethereum is the default answer. That being said, if Ethereum's not in the room, there's also other L1s that I would argue are a little bit more centralized and are run by central companies, and they also make a case. So I think it's important to also point towards what are we trying to create here? If we're trying to create an ecosystem where we think all assets live on one ledger, where you'll have trading at the speed of light, that's one view. But if we look at the existing financial system, there actually are silos. There is an important need to separate assets. There's an important need to have different privacy, different KYC, different jurisdictions. The world operates modularly. Blockchains will operate modularly in the end. So it's actually funny. Most of the criticism about fragmentation comes from retail users that want to sometimes trade meme coin assets on a certain layer. If you go talk to institutions, they get that modularity and customizability is a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, they need to bring their own kind of compliance rules, their own like counterparty. Like that makes a lot of sense. Another thing I wanted to get your view on is, this is a bit like a stepping back question, but there's this quote that I think is interesting from Buckminster Fuller, which is, the best way to change a paradigm is to build a new one and make the old one obsolete. And I guess it's a bit of a difficult question, but to what extent do you think the existing financial industry will really be able to adopt blockchains and like rebuild their stacks on top of them, versus the blockchain native services becoming like what everyone uses?
I think it's absolutely inevitable that financial institutions will swap out their backends for public blockchains. I think it is the clearest product market fit for assets to settle on blockchains. It's the clearest product market fits for tokenized assets to be what banks custody. And what do banks do? Banks are custodians. What are tokens? They're things that need to be custodied. Like, we've just been waiting for regulatory clarity. We've been waiting for things like SAB 121 got repealed. Now everyone's going to be a custodian. Now everyone's going to trade digital assets. It just makes sense. I think we've been held back for regulatory reasons, but I think that blockchains are the most complementary technology to banks, because what do banks want to do? They want to cut costs, they want to increase efficiencies, and they want to become more like tech companies to increase their equity multiples. What does integrating blockchains do for all of them? It checks all those boxes. So I don't see blockchains as ever replacing the banking system. I think that's a very like naive early cypherpunk thing. I think they're the technology to upgrade efficiency, just like AI is upgrading efficiency for everyone. Like, everyone's integrating AI, not worried about it taking over. Well, most people aren't worried about it taking over.
Yeah.
But blockchains are going to be a similar infrastructure layer.
That makes a lot of sense. I think like you're presenting a very exciting and bullish picture on the adoption. So I was wondering if you could expand a bit on how your organization is scaling up to help with this, and what can people in this room do to sort of like engage, or what would you like to see more of?
We think that, Ethereum has built this unbelievable technology, And now we just need people to learn about it and to adopt it and to use it. I want to say, like, it's not even just about the education part anymore. I think blockchains have crossed that point. It's what can we build and what can we offer to bring people into the Ethereum ecosystem. And I think that's the point that we're at, where everyone's saying, let's build our own L2 blockchain. Let's tokenize this fund, help us build this type of app so we can actually have utility for tokenized assets on Ethereum. If anyone's exploring that, come talk to us. Like Ethereum's open for business, where we have partners across the entire ecosystem. We have a big network of builders. We brought on Danny Ryan, who basically oversaw the merge for the Ethereum. He's one of the most storied players. He's a legend. He's a legend in the Ethereum ecosystem. I mean, it's really inspiring. There's real talent and firepower that all wants to build solutions for institutions to actually use the Ethereum ecosystem and upgrade the financial system. So we're open for business. That's where I'd leave it.
Nice. And so it's kind of a mix of advice, but also connecting teams to the right players. Yeah.
To the right players, but also building for you. Like it's not just come here and we'll help you connect to someone to build something. If there's a product that you think that institutions want to build and they want to build it, we'll come build it for you. Like that's what Ethereum has to offer. The technology stack is there. Everything is open, and we can move very, very fast in that, because we think the blockchain adoption moment's right now. It would be very, very sad to miss it in this window where we're getting a bit of a renaissance.
Nice. And maybe a last question from me is there like a prediction you could present or suggest that goes along with the message of, okay, these institutions are going to really start getting onto Ethereum? Is it something around number of layer twos, like new layer twos we'll see from like large, I guess we saw the Sony one, for example. Like, is this something you expect in a year's time we'll have like 20 more of those, or is there another prediction you could offer? We could invite you again in a year to do a scorecard.
I think there will be at least 5 or more financial L2s. We've already seen Deutsche Bank start to experiment with one. I think financial institutions will all build their own L2s. I think the amount of tokenized real world assets is going to probably 10x this year, because it's starting off a low base, but that is the actual use case. I think we're going to see a whole wide variety of assets come on chain. And I think most of this is going to be on the Ethereum network, and that for some reason that's now become a bit of a contrarian prediction. But Ethereum is a home for high value DeFi, and so I think we're going to see most of that happen there, and then we're going to see an institutional push towards trading and utility of tokenized assets over the next year, and then the default is going to be capital markets on chain, and I think that's going to all happen sooner than we think.
It's very exciting. Well, I think maybe we can wrap it up here. I know everyone's keen to get downstairs. I want to thank you so much for not only coming, but also for this new venture. Like, I think it's awesome. I was so excited to see the reception it got, and I think we're all like rooting for you and here to help.
Thanks so much for having me.